The cold marble floor pressed against Jenna's bare knees as she sat crumpled in the restaurant bathroom, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold her phone. The blue evening dress, the one that had cost more than most people earned in a month, was torn at the shoulder, a fresh reminder of how quickly perfection could shatter. Her fingers hovered over the screen, tears blurring the words as she typed, "Dad, this date feels wrong. Send." The message hung there, unanswered, while the world outside the bathroom door continued without her. She could hear muffled laughter bleeding through the walls, the clink of expensive champagne glasses, the murmur of Seoul's elite enjoying their Friday evening. The scent of some woman's designer perfume, Chanel, maybe, or Dior, mixed sickeningly with the salt of her own tears. That morning felt like another lifetime. Her father had kissed her forehead in the foyer of their penthouse, his weathered hands gentle on her shoulders. "This marriage will secure our future, my precious girl," he'd said, his Nigerian accent still thick after all these years in Korea. "The Parks are powerful. You'll want for nothing." She'd wanted to scream that she already had nothing. That all the designer clothes and luxury cars in the world couldn't fill the emptiness in her chest. But she'd only nodded, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "I love you, Daddy." Now, sitting on the bathroom floor, she checked her phone again. No reply. Her father was probably in another meeting, making another deal, building another empire. He never saw her messages until it was too late. Until she'd already survived whatever hell she'd texted him about. The sound of breaking glass exploded from the dining room, followed by Michael's voice cutting through the restaurant's ambience like a knife. "Jenna! Get out here! Now!" Her heart hammered against her ribs. She pressed her back against the bathroom stall, phone clutched to her chest, and tried to remember how to breathe. In 2 weeks, she was supposed to marry that voice. In 2 weeks, that anger would have legal rights to her. She didn't know that on the other side of that bathroom door, her entire life was about to change. And the man who would change it, was the most dangerous person in Seoul. But before we see what happens next, tell me in the comments where are you watching from? Hit that like button, because what Michael does next will absolutely shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. 2 weeks earlier, Jenna had sat cross-legged on Auntie Rose's bedroom floor, her fingers working through the older woman's gray-streaked hair, braiding it into the intricate patterns her mother had taught her before she died. "I don't love him, Auntie," Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible above the Seoul traffic humming outside. "I don't even like him." Auntie Rose, who'd been with their family since Jenna was born, who'd wiped her tears and braided her hair and told her stories of Nigeria when homesickness made her chest ache, reached back and squeezed Jenna's hand. "My dear," she said gently, "your father's entire empire is balanced on this marriage. The Park family holds the contracts to his shipping routes, his hotels, everything. If you refuse..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Jenna's hands stilled in Auntie Rose's hair. She remembered being 15, standing in Seoul's Incheon airport for the first time, overwhelmed by the foreign sounds and smells and faces. Her father had knelt before her, right there in the arrivals terminal, and taken her hands in his. "I'll give you the world, Jenna," he'd promised, his dark eyes fierce with love and determination. "But never let a poor man break your heart like your mother's family broke mine." She'd learned later what he meant. How her mother's wealthy family had rejected him, a poor Nigerian immigrant with nothing but ambition. How he'd built his fortune from nothing, driven by the memory of their contempt. How he'd sworn his daughter would never suffer the poverty that had humiliated him. Now, at 22, Jenna had everything money could buy and nothing her heart wanted. Her poetry journal lay hidden beneath her mattress, pages and pages of dreams about being a writer, about words mattering more than wealth, about love that chose freely instead of being arranged like a business transaction. Sometimes she wrote until her hand cramped, until the poetry became prayers for a different life. She'd met Michael Park 3 months ago. He'd arrived at her father's house with roses and that smile, the one that looked charming in photographs but never reached his eyes. Those eyes had catalogued her like inventory: good teeth, clear skin, curves in the right places. Acceptable merchandise for a merger. "You're beautiful," he'd said on their first date, his hand possessive on her lower back. "My father will be pleased." Not, "I'm pleased." Not, "I'm lucky." Just confirmation that she'd passed inspection. That morning, she'd sat across from her father at breakfast, watching him read the Korean business news with the same intensity he brought to everything. Chief Damien Okafor, self-made billionaire, shipping magnate, hotel empire owner, loved her fiercely. She never doubted that. But his love came wrapped in protection so tight it felt like suffocation. "The contract signing is in 2 weeks, he'd said without looking up from his newspaper. Then the wedding 3 months after. The Parks want a spring ceremony. How do you choose between your father's dreams and your own heartbeat?" Jenna had once overheard her father on a phone call, discussing a potential business partner. "Han Tae-him," he'd said, his voice carrying unusual respect. "Dangerous man. But he keeps his word." She hadn't thought about that name again until the night everything changed. Jenna wiped her face one final time, straightened her torn dress as best she could, and pushed open the bathroom door. The forced composure lasted exactly 3 steps. The restaurant had transformed. Or maybe she had. The warm golden lighting now seemed sinister, casting long shadows across tables where Seoul's elite pretended not to notice the drama unfolding. Faces blurred into meaningless flesh tones, everyone suddenly fascinated by their wine glasses, their appetizers, anything but the brown-skinned girl walking back to her humiliation. Only one table remained in sharp focus. Michael's table. The woman was still there, draped across him like expensive silk. She was giggling at something he'd whispered, her manicured hand resting possessively on his chest. They looked perfect together, 2 beautiful Korean people playing at romance while Jenna bled invisibly. "I thought you said this was important," Jenna's voice came out steadier than she felt. "That you wanted to apologize." Michael looked up, his handsome face twisting with contempt. "She is important." He gestured lazily at his companion. "You? You're just paperwork my father needs signed." The other woman had the decency to look uncomfortable. Jenna reached for her bag with trembling fingers. She was done. Let her father's empire collapse. Let the world burn. She couldn't. Michael's hand shot out, fingers closing around her wrist like a vice. Pain exploded up her arm as he yanked her forward. "Where do you think you're going?" "Let go," she twisted free, stumbling backward into a waiter. Crystal glasses crashed to the floor, the sound impossibly loud. The entire restaurant gasped but nobody moved. Nobody helped. And then Michael's hand connected with her face. Time fractured into slow motion. The slap echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Her cheek erupted in burning pain. Her vision blurred. Somewhere distant, she heard people gasp, whisper, but their phones stayed in their pockets. Their eyes stayed averted. "I booked this entire restaurant," Michael hissed, standing now, towering over her. "Nobody here will stop me. Sit down, or I'll make you." Jenna grabbed her bag again, legs shaking. She had to leave. Had to. The second slap came harder. She fell. The marble floor rushed up to meet her, cold and unforgiving. Her dress tore further at the shoulder. Pain radiated through her hip, her hands, her face. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard Michael's footsteps approaching. This was it. This was her future. This was. "Remove your hand." Slowly. The voice came from behind Michael. Cold. Quiet. Absolutely terrifying. The entire restaurant froze. Jenna looked up through her tears at a man she'd never seen before. Tall, easily 6'2" with shoulder-length black hair pulled back in a low ponytail, 2 strands framing a face that could have been carved from marble. His black suit was perfectly tailored, probably cost more than her dress, and he wore it like armor. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart, dark, intense, and currently fixed on Michael with the kind of focus a predator gives prey. Michael laughed nervously. "Do you know who my father is?" The stranger's expression didn't change. "Yes. Park Jin-woo. Casino debts in Macau totaling 40 million won. Mistress in Busan Park Sun-hee, 23 years old, apartment lease in your mother's name. Tax fraud case pending with the Seoul prosecutor's office." His voice remained perfectly calm, as if reciting a grocery list. "That's why you should apologize. Now." The blood drained from Michael's face. Two men materialized from the shadows, large, silent, wearing dark suits that barely contained their muscular frames. They didn't touch Michael. They didn't need to. Their presence was threatening enough. Michael raised his hand again, whether to strike Jenna or gesture defensively, it didn't matter. The stranger caught Michael's wrist mid-air with almost casual efficiency, his grip turning Michael's face white with pain. Then he looked down at Jenna and really looked at her, and something shifted in those cold eyes. Something almost human. "Would you like to slap him back?" His voice was softer now, almost gentle. "I think you've earned it." The first slap felt like breaking through glass. The second felt like breaking chains. The third felt like freedom. Michael's head snapped with each impact, his carefully styled hair falling across his reddening face. The restaurant remained frozen with a tableau of shock and secret satisfaction. The woman who'd been draped over him had already disappeared. "Gentlemen," the stranger said quietly. The two men in suits moved forward, gripping Michael's arms with the kind of gentle firmness you'd use on a toddler in timeout, respectful but absolute. They escorted him toward the exit while he sputtered threats about lawyers and consequences and didn't know who he was. Nobody cared. Jenna grabbed her bag and ran. Outside, the Seoul night air hit her face like cold water. The adrenaline that had held her together cracked wide open. She started laughing great, gasping laughs that turned into sobs that turned back into laughter. She couldn't stop. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what had just happened. "Reporters will be here in minutes." The stranger's voice came from behind her. "Get in." A black luxury car idled at the curb, back door open. Jenna should have been afraid. Should have questioned getting into a stranger's car. But fear felt irrelevant when your entire world had just exploded. The leather seats were impossibly soft. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows in streams of gold and neon. Jenna tried to calm her breathing and hiccuped a ridiculous, childish sound that made her want to cry all over again. Wordlessly, he handed her a bottle of water. Expensive imported water with Italian words on the label. "Even your water is intimidating," Jenna said, then laughed at the absurdity of the comment. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. It transformed his face for half a second, made him look less like a marble statue and more like a man who remembered what happiness felt like. "Are you hungry?" She blinked. "What?" "I'm hungry." He tapped on the driver's divider and said something in rapid Korean. The car changed direction. 20 minutes later, they stood at a street food stall in Hongdae, surrounded by university students and tourists and ordinary people living ordinary lives. Jenna still in her torn evening dress and this stranger in his expensive suit, eating tteokbokki from paper plates like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're doing it wrong," Jenna said, watching him struggle with his chopsticks. "Show me." Their hands touched as she adjusted his grip. Electricity sparked up her arm, different from Michael's violent grab, different from anything she'd felt before. He held perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on her fingers. "Like this," she whispered. "Like this," he repeated. They ate in comfortable silence until he stopped at a flower vendor, returning with a single yellow rose. Not a bouquet. Not an expensive arrangement. Just one perfect flower. Why did you help me? Jenna asked finally. His jaw tightened. My mother was in a forced marriage. She didn't have anyone to help her. Pause. She died trying to escape. Jenna's chest constricted. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just don't become her. My dad thinks he's protecting me, she heard herself say. He doesn't know he's suffocating me. They walked until his phone rang a harsh sound that shattered their bubble. He answered in Korean, his voice dropping into business mode. Cold. Efficient. The marble statue returning. I should take you home. At her building, Jenna didn't want to leave the car. Didn't want this impossible night to end. What's your name? Han Tae-him. Will I see you again? He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. Probably not. My world is complicated. She nodded, throat tight, and got out. Touched her cheek where he'd brushed away the rice. Where he'd been impossibly gentle. Inside the car, Tae-him watched until she disappeared into the building. Then he pulled out his phone. I need everything from Park Michael and Chief Damien Okafor, he said quietly. Everything. 3 days crawled by like 3 years. Jenna couldn't stop thinking about him. Han Tae-him. Even his name felt dangerous on her tongue. She'd catch herself touching her cheek where his fingers had brushed away the rice, remembering the careful gentleness in those cold eyes. The yellow rose sat in a water glass on her nightstand, still fresh, still perfect. She didn't know that across the city, in a penthouse overlooking the Han River, Tae-him couldn't stop thinking about her either. Here's everything you asked for. His tech expert, a thin man with glasses named Min-jun, spread files across the conference table like tarot cards revealing a dark future. And boss, it's worse than we thought. Photographs spilled out. Nicole with different women in hotel lobbies, restaurants, cars. Time-stamped. Dated. Documented infidelity spanning months. Audio recordings captured him mocking Jenna to friends, the Nigerian girl. She's passable. At least she's exotic. My father says exotic goods sell well in international markets. But the financial documents told the real story. The Park Group doesn't just want a marriage, Min-jun explained, pointing to highlighted sections. They've systematically trapped Chief Okafor in debt schemes. Delayed shipping contracts. Inflated hotel renovation costs. Frozen credit lines. They're strangling him slowly, and the only heir they're offering is his daughter. Tae-him's jaw clenched. Does he know about the abuse? No evidence of that. The daughter never told him. Of course she hadn't. Girls like Jenna were raised to be grateful, to not burden their fathers, to endure. They suffered in silence until silence killed them. Like his mother had. That night, Tae-him sat alone in his penthouse, city lights glittering below like fallen stars. Jenna's face stared back at him from a surveillance photo, laughing at the street food stall, unself-conscious and radiant. Beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with her looks and everything to do with the light that still lived behind her eyes despite everything trying to extinguish it. Why do you care about one girl? His right-hand man, Dae-young, had asked earlier. You've never cared before. Because everyone else didn't, Tae-him had answered simply. Across town, Chief Okafor's world was collapsing in real time. His office had become a war room of desperate phone calls and mounting panic. Park Group was accelerating their demands, tightening the noose, and now they wanted the wedding date moved up by 3 months. Jenna stood outside her father's office door, hand raised to knock, when she heard his voice crack. I have no choice. If I refuse, they'll destroy everything. The ships, the hotel's god, even Auntie Rose's medical bills, they control the hospital board. She pushed the door open. Daddy? Chief Okafor looked up, and for the first time in her life, Jenna saw her father look old. Defeated. Broken. Tell me the truth, she whispered. All of it. He told her. The debt traps. Blackmail. The systematic destruction of everything he'd built. And when he finished, she told him her truth. About the slaps. The cruelty. The other women. The text message he'd never seen because he'd been in a meeting, trying to save them both. Chief Okafor wept. My baby. My precious girl. What have I done? You tried to protect me, Jenna said, holding him. Like you always do. But protection had become a cage, and the cage was closing. That night, Jenna made a decision. She texted Nicole, I'll meet you. One more time. We need to talk. She would record everything. Get evidence. Find a way out of this hell even if it destroyed her father's empire. Some prices were too high to pay. What Jenna didn't know was that Taehyun's network had intercepted her message within seconds. She's walking into a trap, Minjun said urgently. Park Michael isn't stable. He's been making threats. Drinking heavily. Talking about teaching her respect. Taehyun's conference room filled with his top men, dangerous people who'd followed him through years of darkness. Dae-young stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. Getting involved with Chief Okafor means war with the Park Group, he said carefully. They're connected to politicians, prosecutors, judges. This isn't just business. This is suicide. Taehyun stood, straightening his suit jacket. His voice was perfectly calm, perfectly cold, and more terrifying for it. Then we go to war. While Jenna prepared for her dangerous meeting, laying out her best dress and charging her phone to record, Taehyun prepared something different. He made calls. Activated resources. Set plans in motion that would either save her or destroy him. The next morning, he walked into Chief Okafor's office without an appointment, without permission, with only the truth in his hands and war in his eyes. Chief Okafor looked up, startled. Who are you? How did you get past? Mr. Okafor, Taehyun said quietly, we haven't met officially. I'm Han Taehyun. He placed a manila folder on the desk. And I'm here to discuss your daughter's future. Chief Okafor's eyes narrowed with immediate suspicion. Years of building an empire had taught him to recognize danger, and this man radiated it like heat from a furnace. How do you know my daughter? Taehyun didn't sit. Didn't ask permission. He simply opened the manila folder and spread its contents across the mahogany desk like accusations. Photographs. Financial records. Audio files on USB drives. Medical reports showing bruising patterns. Everything. How long has this been happening? Chief Okafor's voice cracked as he picked up a photo of Jenna's bruised wrist. Why didn't she tell me? Because she loves you, Taehyun said simply. And she's been protecting you the same way you've been trying to protect her. The office door opened. Jenna walked in, already talking. Daddy, I need to tell you about. She froze. Time stopped. Her eyes locked on Taehyun standing in her father's office like a beautiful nightmare made real. You, she whispered. Chief Okafor looked between them. You two know each other? The story came out in fragments. The restaurant. The slaps. The text message he'd never answered because he'd been in a meeting, trying to save the empire that was supposed to protect her. The stranger who'd stepped in when everyone else looked away. I was in a meeting, Chief Okafor whispered, tears streaming down his distinguished face. My baby sent me that message and I was in a meeting. Father and daughter embraced, both crying, and Taehyun looked away to give them privacy. He understood what it meant to fail the people you loved most. The office phone shattered the moment with its shrill ring. Chief Okafor answered, his face draining of color with each word. When he hung up, his hand was shaking. Park Group. They're accelerating everything. Wedding in 3 days or they seize the assets tomorrow. They're also threatening criminal charges, fraud, embezzlement. They've manufactured evidence. I can help, Tahim said. I'll fund everything. Clear your debts. No marriage required. Chief Okafor's pride flared through his desperation. I don't accept charity from strangers. What do you want in return? Nothing. Except your permission to destroy the Park family legally. The office door burst open. 3 security guards rushed in, tablets in hand, faces pale. Sir, we ran background on your visitor. This man is... What? Chief Okafor demanded. Han Tahim. Head of the largest organized crime network in Seoul. Money laundering, illegal gambling operations, connection to 7 unsolved. Jenna stepped back as if slapped. No. Tahim turned to her, something breaking behind his careful control. Jenna. You lied to me. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it cut deeper than screaming ever could. You're just like them. Using power to control people. To get what you want. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Tears streamed down her face. Tell me how it's different. Tell me how you're not just another man who saw something he wanted and took it. Because I'm trying to leave that world, Tahim said, and for the first time since entering the office, his composure cracked. For you. But Jenna was already running, the sound of her footsteps echoing down the marble hallway like a heartbeat fading. Chief Okafor stood slowly, drawing himself up to his full height despite his age, despite his fear. Get out of my office. Stay away from my daughter. I don't care what you think you can offer, we don't do business with criminals. Tahim gathered his files in silence. At the door, he paused. The Park group will come tomorrow. When they do, remember that I was the only one offering help without chains attached. In her bedroom, Jenna collapsed on her bed. The yellow rose on her nightstand was wilting now, petals browning at the edges. Everything beautiful died eventually. Why had she thought this would be different? Her phone buzzed. Park Group's lawyers. Confirming the wedding date. Attached were fabricated criminal charges against her father ready to file unless she complied. 3 days. She had 3 days before she became Mrs. Park Nicole. 3 days before the cage door locked forever. The flower dropped a petal. Then another. Outside, rain began to fall on Seoul, and somewhere across the city, a dangerous man sat in his penthouse, looking at the lights below, wondering if doing the right thing for once in his life had just destroyed the only good thing he'd ever touched. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Jenna sat curled on Auntie Rose's bed, watching water streak down the windows like the world itself was crying. Tell me about him, Auntie Rose said gently, her weathered hands working through Jenna's hair in the same braiding pattern she'd done since Jenna was small. There's nothing to tell. He's a criminal. A liar. Is he? Auntie Rose's fingers paused. Or is he a man trying to become someone better? Jenna's throat tightened. How can you defend him? Because I saw how he looked at you when he thought no one was watching. Auntie Rose resumed braiding, her voice soft with memory. The same way your father looked at your mother's photograph after she died. Like you're not just his reason to live, you're his reason to be better. After Auntie Rose fell asleep, Jenna pulled out her poetry journal. The leather was worn from years of secrets and dreams. She flipped through pages randomly, and her breath caught. A stranger with careful hands. Who sees the bruises everyone else ignores? Whose darkness holds more light than all the golden lies I've known? She'd written it 4 days ago. Before she knew his name. Before she knew what he was. Before she knew he was exactly what she needed. Across the city, Tahim stood at the head of his conference table for the last time. 15 men, dangerous, loyal, deadly, stared at him in confusion. I'm retiring, he said simply. Immediately. Dae-young will oversee the dissolution of all operations. Silence. Then chaos. You can't. The families won't allow. Everything we've built. Boss, is this because of one girl? Taehim's voice cut through the noise like ice. No. It's because of the man I want to become for her. The man I should have been for my mother. The man I'm choosing to be now, while I still can. He spent the next 48 hours systematically burning down everything he'd built. Anonymous tips to prosecutors about corrupt politicians. Evidence packages delivered to investigative journalists. Debt records destroyed, freeing hundreds trapped in his network. Bank accounts emptied into victim restitution funds. His empire didn't just fall. He demolished it brick by brick, making sure it could never be rebuilt. Meanwhile, Jenna found her own courage in poetry and Rain and Auntie Rose's wisdom. She walked into her father's office with her chin up and her heart hammering. "Daddy, I need to tell you something." She took a breath. "I think I'm in love with Han Tae-him." Chief Okafor didn't look surprised. He set down his pen and smiled sadly. "I know, precious girl. I saw how you looked at him. How he looked at you. But he's a criminal. A man who's trying to change," her father interrupted gently. "Your mother taught me that everyone deserves a second chance. Even me." Jenna blinked. "What?" Chief Okafor pulled an old photograph from his desk drawer. A younger him, thin, desperate, hungry, standing beside Jenna's beautiful mother outside a slum in Lagos. "I wasn't always Chief Damien Okafor, shipping magnate," he said quietly. "I was once just Damien. Poor. Ambitious. Willing to make questionable deals to survive. Your mother's family rejected me. Called me a criminal. A user. They weren't entirely wrong. Daddy. But your mother loved me anyway. She saw who I was trying to become, not just who I'd been. She gave me a reason to be better." His eyes glistened. "If Han Tae-him is willing to walk away from power for you, he's already better than I was at his age." The office door opened without knocking. Tae-him stood on the threshold, and Jenna's heart stopped. He looked lighter somehow, despite the exhaustion in his eyes. Like a man who'd been carrying weight for so long he'd forgotten what freedom felt like. "I'm sorry for the intrusion," he said. "But we're running out of time, and the Park Group isn't just blackmailing you." He placed a thick folder on the desk. "They're running illegal gambling operations across Seoul. Money laundering through offshore accounts. Bribing prosecutors. I have proof. Everything." Chief Okafor studied him carefully. "Why bring this to me? Why not use it yourself?" "Because I'm done using power as a weapon." Tae-him's eyes found Jenna's. "I want to do this the right way. The legal way. With your help." For 3 hours, they planned. Chief Okafor's business acumen, Tae-him's insider knowledge, Jenna's documented evidence of abuse. They built a case that would destroy the Park family without becoming them. As Auntie Rose brought coffee, Chief Okafor excused himself, leaving Jenna and Tae-him alone for the first time since the truth had shattered everything. "After this," Tae-him said quietly, "I disappear from that life completely. But Jenna, I need you to know I'll wait as long as it takes. If you can forgive me. If you can trust me again." Jenna crossed the room slowly. "I'll do better than wait." She took his hands, those careful, dangerous, gentle hands. "I'll fight with you." He cupped her face like she was something precious. Breakable. Sacred. "I don't deserve you. Then become someone who does." The kiss was soft. Tentative. Full of promise and hope and the fragile, terrifying possibility that broken people could build something beautiful from their shattered pieces. Outside, the rain finally stopped, and Seoul began to shine. The legal office was all glass and chrome and carefully hidden federal agents. Chief Okafor had insisted on neutral ground for the wedding contract signing, and Park Jin-woo had agreed, too confident to suspect a trap. He arrived like a king, expensive suit, smug smile, victory in his eyes. Michael followed, sporting fresh bruises that made Jenna's stomach twist with satisfaction rather than fear. Progress. Chief Okafor. Park Jin-woo spread his arms magnanimously. I'm glad you've come to your senses. Shall we make this official? Chief Okafor played his part perfectly. Humble. Defeated. Grateful for mercy. He even reached for the pen. Finally, Park Jin-woo purred, you understand how business works in Seoul. The strong survive. The weak serve. The conference room door opened. Jenna walked in wearing a white power suit instead of a wedding dress. Her very long hair was pulled back severely. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like war wrapped in elegance. Father, before you sign, I have something to say. Park Jin-woo barely glanced at her. The women can discuss flower arrangements after. Jenna placed a folder on the table. I've been documenting everything. Every slap. Every threat. Every woman my fiancé brought to restaurants while I waited like an obedient dog. She opened it, spreading photographs and audio files. Here's Michael on Tuesday, telling his friends I'm passable for a black girl. Here's him hitting me at dinner. Here's. Irrelevant, Park's lawyer interrupted smoothly. Personal grievances don't invalidate business contracts. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway, coercion invalidates everything. Tae-him entered, flanked by lawyers in sharp suits and federal investigators with badges displayed. He looked different without the shadows of his criminal empire, lighter, cleaner, and dangerous in an entirely new way. Han Tae-him, he introduced himself formally. Former organized crime operator, current government witness. And I'm here to discuss your other contracts, Park Jin-woo. He nodded to his lawyers. They began laying out evidence like weapons. Illegal gambling operations in Gangnam, Itaewon, and Busan. Money laundering through 17 shell corporations. Bribes paid to prosecutors, judges, and city officials, names and amounts documented. Oh, and my personal favorite is using shipping contracts to smuggle untaxed luxury goods. Park Jin-woo's face was drained of color. You think you're immune because you have connections? Tae-him's voice was cold, precise, surgical. Your connections are currently being arrested based on evidence I provided. You're alone. You've always been alone. Michael bolted for the door. 2 federal agents materialized, blocking his escape with the casual efficiency of people who did this every day. Handcuffs clicked shut. No, 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 Michael thrashed. Father, do something. But Park Jin-woo was already being read his rights. Michael's wild eyes found Jenna. Even in handcuffs, even facing prison, he tried to threaten her. You'll regret this. My family will destroy you. You're nothing without. Jenna walked up to him calmly. Looked him directly in his bloodshot, panicked eyes. Smiled. You taught me something important, Michael. You taught me exactly what I'll never accept again. Thank you for that lesson. She turned her back on him and didn't look back. Outside the office windows, media vans screeched to a halt. Cameras flashed. Headlines were already forming, Park Empire collapses in stunning scandal. Chief Okafor's lawyer approached with documents. Sir, we've reviewed the debts Park Group claimed you owed. They're fraudulent. Fabricated interest rates, forged signatures, contracts that never existed. You're free. You were always free. Tae-him handed his final folder to the lead federal prosecutor, a stern woman who'd spent 15 years trying to catch him. Everything on my former network. Names, operations, bank accounts. I'm done. She studied him carefully. You're really walking away. I already did. This is just closing the door behind me. The prosecutor nodded slowly. For what it's worth, thank you. That night, the headlines read, Mysterious Crime Lord Surrenders Empire, Cooperates with Authorities in Historic Takedown. 3 days later, they celebrated at the same street food stall where Jenna and Tahim had shared their first real conversation. Chief Okafor, Auntie Rose, Jenna, and Tahim crammed around a plastic table, eating tekbaki and cheap soju under string lights. Is this what my daughter chose over 5-star restaurants? Chief Okafor said, biting into the spicy rice cake. His eyes immediately watered. Dear God, it's like eating fire. Everyone laughed while he frantically gulped water. Auntie Rose patted his back. Now you understand her, maybe. Under the table, Tahim's hand found Jenna's. Their fingers intertwined. No empires. No threats. No cages. Just possibility, and street food, and love that had survived darkness to find light. 6 months later, the beach was empty except for 2 people and the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink that no luxury restaurant could ever replicate. Tahim stood barefoot in the sand, wearing simple linen pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No suit. No guards. No weapons. Just a man waiting for the woman who'd taught him that strength didn't always mean power, and safety didn't always mean control. Jenna walked toward him slowly, her sundress catching the breeze, her hair loose and wild the way she never used to wear it when she thought she had to be perfect. She was barefoot too, leaving footprints in the sand that the tide would wash away, and somehow that felt right. Nothing permanent except the choice they were about to make. He knelt when she reached him, and his hands were shaking. Jenna Okafor, he said, his voice rough with emotion, I'm not asking as a boss or a criminal or anything I used to be. I'm asking as a man who loves you. Who wants to spend every day becoming someone worthy of you. Will you marry me? The ring was simple. Silver band, single small diamond. Nothing that screamed wealth or power. Everything that whispered forever. Yes, Jenna whispered, tears streaming down her face. 1,000 times yes. The wedding happened 3 months later in a garden so small it could barely hold 50 people. No media. No business associates. Just family and the friends who mattered. Chief Okafor walked Jenna down the aisle, and halfway there, he leaned close to whisper in her ear. That stranger who barged into my office uninvited became the best son-in-law I could ask for. Your mother would have loved him. She would have loved that I chose him myself, Jenna whispered back. Tahim stood at the altar in a simple gray suit, his hair pulled back, his eyes wet, looking at Jenna like she was every sunrise he'd never thought he deserved to see. The ceremony was short. The vows were simple. The kiss lasted long enough that Auntie Rose had to clear her throat loudly, making everyone laugh. At the reception, they danced under string lights while a small band played. Jenna rested her head on Tahim's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady, real, alive. She thought about the poetry she'd written in her journal that morning. Love found me in a bathroom stall. Where I texted my father, this feels wrong. A dangerous man with careful hands. Taught me that surrender isn't weakness. That vulnerability is the bravest thing. That the safest place to fall is into arms that have known darkness and chosen light. Tahim spun her suddenly, and Jenna laughed, the free, unguarded laugh of someone who'd stopped performing and started living. He caught her, dipped her dramatically, and she laughed harder. The photographer captured them frozen in that moment, Jenna's head thrown back in joy, Tahim's smile wide and genuine, both of them wrapped in string lights and love and the second chances they'd fought so hard to earn. Later, when people asked Jenna how she knew he was the one, she always said the same thing. Sometimes the wrong date leads you to exactly the right person. And sometimes, the most dangerous man in the city is the safest place to fall. You just have to be brave enough to let yourself fall. Tahim would add, and sometimes, being saved means learning how to save yourself. She taught me that. She taught me everything that matters. They built a life that wasn't perfect but was theirs. No empires. No cages. No lies. Just love, and laughter, and the courage to choose each other every single day.